This season marks a new beginning. Witness the raw power, iconic sound, and pure speed from the historic Lotus 79. Experience the competition and glory days of early 80s open-wheel action. Watch as drivers wrestle these ground effects cars into submission. Drivers will face off wheel to wheel. For some, it's a chance at redemption. For others, an opportunity to make a statement. All sharing the same goal, to be crowned champion. Tune in Thursday nights on the iRacing Esports Network to watch the premier historic open wheel series on iRacing, the Lionheart Retro Series presented by Butt Kicker.
Hello from Dream Vacations. We look forward to helping you plan a cruise vacation where you can race your friends on the top deck while cruising the oceans, or you can compete with your friends in style with virtual reality racing on board. If cruising is not for you, we can send you to Germany where you can challenge the ring, or whisk you off to Abu Dhabi to take on the world's fastest roller coaster in Ferrari World. Whatever your dream vacation may be, let Dream Vacations handle the details and make that dream into a reality. Visit us at www.travelwithanangel.com.
This is the original eSport racing game. This is iRacing.
Four rounds in, and the current champion has yet to win a race this season. However, last round saw the gap tighten between our two main protagonists, Unger and Overbay. Their only saving grace to prevent others from getting into the mix has been the exciting unpredictability of this series. There have no repeat winners so far this season, and no driver has managed every race within the top 5. Motorsport certainly doesn't bode well for those hoping for a predictable race with its punishing nature and short lap times. We'll see if we get a 5th winner as we get ready to watch round 5 of the PRL Radical Racing Series, and you'll see it all live here on the Global SimRacing Channel and the iRacing Esports Network. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and with me in the booth is Nick Schmeg. Behind the scenes is our director Sean Crackers Ambrose, and he's using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. Nick, last week we saw difficulty in passing at the Nürburgring, but I suspect Canadian Tire Motorsports Park is going to turn that up to 11.
Yeah, well, the difficulty in passing is going to indeed get bumped up to an 11, but the number of turns this week is going to take a dip down to 10. You'd think that with only 10 turns, the skill level needed to put a fast lap together would be much less. However, it's quite the contrary, as Canadian Tire Motorsports Park, often abbreviated to Mosport, is one of the most daunting racetracks in North America. The elevation change here, especially with these low-to-the-ground radicals, makes for some terrifyingly blind corners where traction is at a premium. That's not to mention that one mistake can ruin your entire lap, as there's not much room for error and a whole lot of fast sections of pavement to pay your dues. The one technical section of this track would be down at Moss Corner, the uphill double apex that was indeed designed by Sterling Moss himself after he didn't quite approve of the original blueprints in the late 50s. He went on to become a dominant force here in Formula One, setting the groundwork for other series like IMSA, IndyCar, and the NASCAR Truck Series to follow in a pilgrimage to Ontario. In total, Mosport rolls itself out over just shy of 2.5 miles or 4 kilometers. And to get a better look at what the drivers are up against tonight, let's send you down to the track for the GSRC lap guide.
All right, we've got Johnny Bell in the GSRC Radical, so let's do a lap around Mosport. Turn 1 is extremely fast, so don't expect many passes into here. The curve on the outside at the exit can also be a bit perilous, so give it some buffer. Then you've got the infamous Clayton Corner with its super blind entry and incredible commitment required. There's no time to rest because immediately at the bottom of the hill you're switching sides for Quebec. Though it's a late apex, it really opens up as the turn progresses. Not getting the power down soon enough will really hamper you, and while turn 4 is pretty fast in the high downforce radical, it still needs a little lift over the crest to set it up properly for Moss. The huge compression into this double apex hairpin makes passing supremely difficult. The braking is so late and the margins so tricky to get right that it's rare you can outbrake someone. Most drivers are focusing hard on the run off the corner because of it dumping you onto the Andretti straight. This is the longest flat-out section of the track, and it's also a big climb back uphill. Get wheel spin or hesitate on the power and everyone is going to be pouncing on trying to overtake you. Though most will try to get it done before turn 8, this swift corner can offer some unique opportunities. You're not going to get it done on the brakes because you don't brake into this bend. Instead, if you hold the outside, it switches back in your favor at 9. Watch out for the slow, fiddly nature of whites, and then as you fly to the line, you've now hopefully finished a lap around Mosport. A lot of fast sweeping corners that require courage and guts, very little runoff that'll punish you if you make a mistake, and a lot of history. This is everything every racer asks for in a road course. But the PRL Radical Racing Series itself is brought to you by Dream Vacations. Dream Vacations provides completely customizable vacation packages from your door to your destination and back. Go to travelwithanangel.com and let us worry about the details. Thanks to Dream Vacations, of course, for sponsoring this season of the PRL Radical Racing Series, which, as I mentioned in the intro, has had a fascinating championship so far. Let's take a look at the driver points so far after 4 rounds. Unger does still lead with a win in his pocket. Overbay, who has yet to win, even though he was last season's champion, has certainly kept himself in the mix with some consistent finishes. He is 5 points back. Now, Eric Harmon drops down 1 because of Overbay doing a good job last round at the Nürburgring. Harmon essentially as well doing the same trick that Overbay is and just rifling off good finishes. Owen McLaughlin and Eric Luke round out the top 5. Luke coming off his first series victory here in the Radical. We also have a team's championship. Nick, what are we looking at for those?
Yeah, it's definitely not as tight from first to second in the team standings. Left Side Drive Racing has put on a pretty dominant performance the last couple of weeks with Harmon and Unger up there, 56 whopping points ahead of Blown Tranny Racing. They move up, the Canadian team up into second. The Crash for Cash guys will drop down to third with that, but they're only separated by 3 points, 4 points further back. Fraley's Auto Body has taken a big jump from 8th out of 8 in the standings up to 4th. They are 63 points back, and that will demote Alpine Stars Geodesic Racing down to 5th with Michael Overbay. However, after a 3-week hiatus, his teammate Jefferson Padovani is back tonight, so look for them to start racking up those points once again.
We all got a little bit of a smile seeing Glitter Pants be able to make it back to the track. Let's see if he can help contribute to that team's battle. This race today itself, as we mentioned, round 5, and they do have a drop week in their points battle. So if they do have a bad race, we will see that implemented, I believe, soon, if not already. I don't believe it was put into the points that I was looking at earlier today that we showed you here on the screen. The setups on these cars are open. However, if you've raced in the real Radical SR8, you may have noticed that they can usually go a little bit farther without a pit stop. Well, that's because they've restricted the fuel cell here in the sim for this series. So this 45-minute race will include at least one stop for fuel. They have an incident cap of 24, which means they will be disqualified if they abuse the track limits or have too many incidents. And they have no spare car if they get any sort of damage. And we've seen damage is not just a worry because of the handling of the car, but strictly pace in general, which certainly hurt last race for Unger, who found himself running into lap traffic by accident and lost out on a chance to challenge for the win. He's trying to make up for that today because he currently holds provisional pole, but it is Padavani who is chasing him. Comes back swinging. Only problem is his swings are missing because he's about half a second down.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm taking a look at Unger and Padavani in that top 2, but the driver I'm really interested in is Owen McLaughlin. He is in 3rd, a great showing for him today.
He looked very good in the warm-up, and so did Christian Gritzko, but McLaughlin, who has come back with a good qualifying, Gritzko has failed to put in a lap time the last 3 laps. His first one, a 1:12.6, the only one he's been able to get in. He does have nearly 6 minutes left to go, so it's not like he's running out of time too quickly with as fast as these laps rifle off. But the number 28 machine, and one of our winners for the 4 of these races we've had so far this season, is struggling here, where he showed good pace earlier on. He does set his fastest lap just now, but it only bumps him up 1 position. Christian's really got to get this car underneath him in quali.
Yeah, he definitely doesn't want to start back in 10th, especially like we've seen so many times in the past 4 races, all the trouble that happens in the first handful of laps.
Right on board with the Canadian at one of his home circuits. Now, I talked about the short lap time and the difficulty in the corners, but with all that taken into account, my big question for you, Nick, is lap traffic. How big of a factor do you expect that to play out today?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, they are running times of about 70 seconds. But then again, we've had that fear before in this series of lap traffic, and we haven't seen it play out too majorly. You might get some guys on a pit cycle, and if they really spread themselves out, it can cause chaos. But I think Motorsport, especially this back straightaway, really is an easier track to get around that traffic, but definitely something they're going to have to watch out for today. Might not have to keep their heads on a swivel as much as they might fear, though.
Well, let's hope it doesn't affect the race like it did last round. Padavani still working to improve his way towards Unger, but it is slow going from 0.5 of a second up to 4.5 tenths back now. His 1:11.5 isn't quite there yet. Riding on board with Scotty Zerk, currently the last place driver to have gotten a lap in, and this one's not going to be any faster with that 1:16 he just laid down. You mentioned McLaughlin, who's been bumped to 4th. Gritzko finally got himself a really good one in. He's now in 3rd. McLaughlin had a horrible start to last race, and that unfortunately kind of set the tone. I have to imagine here especially will want the same just because of the lack of passing zones.
Yeah, absolutely. He's been dealing with a lot of bad luck. Like you said, ran into trouble last week. He came home 11th. And before that, though, he did show a lot of speed at Monza, finishing 6th. So we know he has the potential to get up there. Another 6th place finish at Road Atlanta 2 in round 2. So, yeah, he has the speed. He just has to stay out of bad luck.
Well, appropriately, like a lumberjack up here in Canada, Padavani is chopping away at that lead of Unger's. It's now down to 3.5 tenths. If he keeps this up, he'll be very close to him, but should not be able to overtake. It depends on if he can find more time than that each lap. Overbay struggling. You can see he's down in 9th. And Curlin Andrew, the Texan, comes across one more time with a 1:12.4. That's not his fastest lap. A 12:2 keeps him in 11th. So what about Unger? He could yet still go faster potentially, and it looks like he won't this time. That lap did not count. First time, actually, he's had a lap not count here in qualifying. Going to get 2 more tries at it.
David Unger was the winner at Road Atlanta in round 2. That's a track that is, it has a lot of characteristics just like Motorsport. A lot of elevation change, a lot of fast sweeping turns. No surprise to me, he's up by 0.4 of a second right now over Padovani in second.
Right, Overbay's trying to get himself a little bit higher up. A 1:11.8, his fastest thus far, and a 1:12.1. This is not looking like a strong track for our current champion. Does not bode well. He is riding behind his teammate, maybe hoping to get a little bit of a tow up the Andretti straight. We'll stay and watch to see if that's the case, but I also want to report last round's winner, Eric Luke, also doing a little bit worse today than what we've seen in previous rounds. His qualifying has been phenomenal. He started on the front row at the Nürburgring. Right now, he's only managed 6th.
Yeah, he's working with his teammate Mark Feil in front of him in the 777 Fraley's Auto Body machine. Trying to rack up some team points today as well for them.
See if that draft helped. They're coming around White's corner. The 1:11.8 is Luke's fastest lap. He crosses the line, and it's a 1:12 flat. No good. Overbay and Padovani are going to come up behind them across the line just now. And Overbay sits a 1:11.6. That's still good enough for 6th. Oh, Padovani! Padovani with a lightning lap. That puts him on pole. Yeah, look at that gap. Go ahead, Nick.
3/1000ths of a second. And the interesting thing to me is that Overbay is the one following him. Padovani's not getting any tow in front of him.
The number 69, also one of our winners this season. David Unger trying to respond just as the clock ticks down. And it's not faster, but I think he crossed the line in time. Did he? No, he did not. He is... Oh, so Padovani manages to overtake Unger. The only drivers left out that could manage to potentially do better. Christopher Richards comes to a halt after his last attempt. Overbay still down in 6th, but he has not been showing great pace. Everyone in front of the number 1 car is not out on track.
And you mentioned Padovani, who looks like he's going to have the pole. Puts in another lap here. We've mentioned before, after missing so many weeks, he's not going to be in a fight for the championship. This steals a bonus point away from someone else that is.
Including his teammate, unfortunately. So you see Padovani spin it a little bit coming through Clayton. This is Gunderson, going to be our last car to cross the line in qualifying. He sits within the top 10. And he improves to a 1:12 flat, which unfortunately doesn't improve him on the grid. He stays 10th. So that will round out our qualifying efforts and takes us to our starting grid. Jefferson Padovani missed the last 3 rounds, but he comes back a-flying. He'll be P1 when the green drops. David Unger next to him, looking to redeem himself from his incident at the Nürburgring. Christian Gritzko as well. His mistakes returned in Germany. Can he find himself back up at the top spot to be the first person to win twice this season? He starts 3rd. Owen McLaughlin will be P4 with Christopher Richard in 5th. Overbay, unusually low qualifying for the number 1 car. Will be P6. Eric Luke as well. Unusual to see him as slow as this in 7th. Rim Ambrosi starts 8th with Mark Feil in 9th. And Matthew Gunderson, as we mentioned, will round out your top 10.
Back in row 6, you'll find the guy you'll never have to wait for in front of you at the gas station, Curlin Andrew. He's got Tyler Gore, one of the Canadians, in the field today to his outside. Andy Spicer will be behind him in 13th, David Hebert in 14th, with Danny Duchesne, yet another Canadian, rounding out the top 15. Daniel Barnett and Ronald McManus will be behind him. Julian Huxley will be alongside McManus, rounding out row number 9. 19th and 20th will go to Phil Guillaumin and Scotty Zerk, and William Lee did not set a qualifying time. He'll start back of the pack in 21st.
See the cars already gridding up. It will certainly be fascinating to see who can take advantage of this track, which is much different from what we saw the previous 2 rounds. Monza with its very long straights but tight fiddly chicanes, and then you had the Nürburgring, which is mostly technical. And this one, essentially all fast sweepers with one long straight to help you along, but very, very few hard braking zones. So, engines start to rev, lights are up. Green flag is out here in Canada. Padovani gets a decent start to stay ahead of Unger. Single file for the top 3, but it is side by side for 4th. McLaughlin on the outside. He's going to lose out to Christopher Richards. Slots ahead, and all the cars now plunge down the hill through Clayton. Are we going to see any mistakes? Already I see a car off in the grass. That is Curlin Andrew.
Looks like Curlin Andrew's the only one as they head their way up through Quebec, and they will get more single file even back through the middle of the field.
Well, that's certainly going to give a lot of problems for Curlin to try and come through the field here today. Apparently we had more drivers off track. We'll come back to the replay to find out who was involved with that one, but they're already on the Andretti straight. Padovani continues to be your leader, with our current points leader, David Unger, behind him and actually gaining quite a bit. Took a little bit of a look to the outside with that defensive move from Padovani into turn 8. Behind them, look at that battle back there between Richards, McLaughlin, and Overbay, all close together, swinging through the final S's and in a train.
Headed down into turn 1. That's a bold move to try to send one in there, especially this early in the race. You see them all stay single file. Maybe a little bit of a challenge up for the lead, though David Unger is looking more and more aggressive to try to get around Jefferson.
Riding on board with Unger. Look at him close as they come through Quebec. Padovani, though, a little bit stronger off the corner. Wonder if Jefferson's got some different aero settings to what Unger's got on him. Through Moss Corner. This, the critical corner exit. Both of them nice and tidy, but you have to admit Unger much closer this time as well.
And nice and tidy is the key to that one. Christopher Richards running in 4th. He swung that wide. He lost a ton of positions in front of him.
Come back to that in a little bit. This battle for the lead continuing to heat up. This time much more threatening into turn 8. And don't forget behind them, I mentioned Gritzko was strong in the warm-up. Well, he's looking very strong in the race as well. It's a 3-car breakaway. Padovani leads, Unger 2nd, and Gritzko 3rd. I think we've got an opportunity to look at some of these replays we've racked up. See if we can go back to the first lap with that incident that we missed on screen in Quebec, I believe it was.
Yeah, this was Curlin Andrew. We saw him get off the track at the start. It was Scotty Zerk, the driver that came up and just tagged him, it looks like.
So we're going to see him come off in Clayton, and then there's a little bit of incident afterwards, you're saying?
Yeah, he had a meeting with Scotty Zerk. A little bit of a run-in with each other up through Quebec. I think you're right. I believe that was the turn it was in.
So there's
saw
the
him get
incident
offline. Yeah, saw him get off the line first, and then as he's trying to rejoin the track, just ran out of room with Scotty.
Oh, turned in on him. Unfortunate. So we come back live. Things have changed because Gritzko just can't get away from his demons. He's fallen to 11th. He had a mistake in Quebec himself and is currently trying to fight his way back through. That makes it a 2-car breakaway now, just Padavani and Unger.
Yeah, single car spin for Gritsko. Didn't get any damage with that, hopefully. I don't know if he got anything underneath him.
Going back to File and McLaughlin, this is a battle for P5. They're not too far behind Michael Overbay, who's managed to get himself up to 4th. Oh, and an off track. Mark File way off. Nearly noses it into the tires, but look at the car streaming by him out of Moss Corner. He's all the way down to 14th.
He did a phenomenal job sliding on the brakes in the grass to get out of that tire barrier, or to avoid it completely.
Oof. So already a number of drivers finding this to be a very difficult track. Gritsko is trying to climb his way back through. He got past Spicer to reach 9th. Up next for him is Christopher Richards, and I'm trying to see, is there any damage on Gritsko? If he's got a clean car, he could still try and work his way through.
Yeah, he didn't have any contact, so I believe it was just a single car spin. It just snapped on him like we've seen it so many times this year. And he avoided any of the tire barriers or the guardrails. So unless he's got something underneath him, the suspension messed up, he should be good to go.
Well, let's hope the 28 can manage something out of this. Just an update on our leaders. Padavani's put the afterburners on. It's already 1.1
Oh,
seconds.
Gritsko. And more trouble.
That was Danny Duchesne and Gore.
Yeah.
Who find themselves off track. Now, was that related? I had looked away.
I don't think it was related. They were going through Moss side by side behind him. Duchesne on the inside.
Watch from above. This will give us a great angle on both incidents. There's the spin for Gritsko. Wow, who was that sneaking through, though?
That was David A. Bear. I was just about to say, we might want to get on board with him. That's incredible.
We'll check that one out. 16 approaching. 1 incident, 2 incidents, and I'll just pick the left side. Wow. Split second thinking. So A. Bear finds himself in 11th. Up ahead of them, I believe I just saw, was it Richards and Gunderson that swapped positions?
Looks like that was the case.
So nicely done by Richards. I'm actually rather impressed because Richards was kind of nowhere at the Nürburgring, but today he's been fairly decent. Not been without his mistakes as he started in 5th and he's down in 7th, but up in the top half of the field, it looks like the number 49 faring pretty well. I think we had a problem with Scotty Zerk because he suddenly popped into the pits. And we don't have the replay, unfortunately, but he went wide at Clayton, and he is down into the tires. He unfortunately had to be on the hook to find himself back in the mechanics.
Check in with our leaders up front. David Unger, we saw him trying to close that gap on Padavani. That gap's opened up a little bit, but it hasn't been increasing lap after lap. He's kind of maintaining it right now, about 9/10 of a second.
And for all my downplaying, Eric Luke, who started in 7th place, is now onto the podium. Now, he's not anywhere near to challenge the leaders for the moment. That could still change. He's about 4 3/4 seconds behind David Unger. He'll have to certainly find some pace to close that in. But lap traffic could, of course, have an effect on these drivers' pace. We haven't seen them deal with that quite yet, even though it isn't the largest of fields.
Yeah, I'm sure Luke would love to get up here in contention and fight with these guys. He'd become our first driver this year with more than one win, and he'd go back-to-back. Our winner last week at Nürburgring.
Well, that would be fantastic. McLaughlin is in a little bit of a tussle with Rem Ambrosi, who looked like he was going to be a challenger for wins this season when we first showed up at Watkins Glen. But since then, Rem just hasn't been much of a factor. He sits in 6th, so he could score some decent points for himself today, could the Australian. Riding on board with McLaughlin, looking back. Oh, gets really close to the rear end of that car. Let's see if he can use the slipstream and maybe have a go into 8. Catching little flashes of Michael Overbay in the number 1 just ahead of them. Only about a second gap up there, and though Ambrosi closes it down. Oh, but he's very brave into the corner. My goodness.
Yeah, I thought he was going to hold back there once I saw his corner entry, but no, decided to send that one in.
Now, I didn't think there was any braking into that turn, even though there's a lift from what I've seen from drivers. I don't know how in the world he managed to find that much into the entry. I think we got a replay of this.
Yeah, he found the speed, obviously, to get around him. I think it caught him off guard as well. Well, McLaughlin, that is.
McLaughlin definitely braked on his way in. Well, that's interesting. That set him back into Christopher Richards. They're working their way through traffic. And car of William Lee pulling aside to let them through. There you see Ambrosi now pulling away from what is a battle behind him. McLaughlin trying to fend off Christopher Richards. Richards is going to have the inside into turn 8. Gunderson watches from the popcorn position. You can see in the pink car behind. But once again, we're seeing McLaughlin timid into 8 and lets him through.
Must be running a little more conservative through there. That, or he might not have a setup that really agrees with those fast, flat turns through there.
Oh, Padavani is off. Our leader is in the wall. Padavani, a big error into Clayton corner.
Oh, this was a hard wreck, too, for him.
You talk about snap oversteer. Oh, didn't even get to the tires. That was straight to the concrete.
Yeah, he hit that at such an awkward angle, too, where it kind of just sprung him up into the air. Just launched him, really.
Nothing really looked unusual about his entry from that onboard. Just shortly after he turned into the corner, suddenly the car started to get loose on him. He's back going, but he's already down to 5th. And again, no spare cars. He's going to have to get repairs. This promotes David Unger to the lead. He has also won a race so far this season, so he could be our first repeat winner. Eric Luke is behind him by about 4 seconds. He could be a repeat winner. Michael Overbay, in the meantime, who is our current champion, has yet to win, as I mentioned. He is 5 seconds back from Luke, but now onto the podium.
Yeah, teammates with Padavani moves up to the podium with that, but Rem Ambrosi is behind him by about a second, and he's coming fast, it looks like.
Looks like Andrew Spicer's had some issues, and this is out of White's corner, but I think he managed to get away with it. Yeah, he just, don't need a replay, he just spun the car off the corner, returned without hitting anything. Oh, he's down to 10th.
He's dealing with more problems, though, off track. Once again, Tyler Gore and Curlin Andrew were going by him. It was just about 3 wide there for an instant.
We do have a replay of this one. Mowing the grass outside of Clayton. Yeah, just understeered that one a little wide. As all that's been happening, David Unger just cruises, taking care of his own race. But Eric Luke has since closed in slightly, I'm seeing. It was 4 seconds, it's now 3.5 seconds between himself and the Australian.
Well, we mentioned a handful of laps ago how great it would be if Luke could pull off the improbable and close that gap and fight for the lead. Well, it's looking more and more likely now.
Whoa, big slide, though, for the number 19. Unger's not resting on his laurels, and I can see a little bit of damage on the right side of the car. So as we jump back down to Richards, who currently is chasing Ambrosi. This is for P4 between these two. Attrition has reared its ugly head early. We've barely hit the pit window and we're already missing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 cars out of 21 starters. A quarter of the field.
Good battle back for 10th place. Ronald McManus and Tyler Gore. Gore looking to send one up there through the S's. He's bad to back off. They were battling with Curlin Andrew just a moment ago, but he's since pulled away up into 9th.
Remember, Andrew was the one that went off at Clayton on the very first lap, so this has been a decent recovery. If anything, it's gone from recovery to now a fight to move forward from where he essentially started. He was 11th on the grid. He's back up to 9th. So are we going to get any early takers? Yes, we are. Phil Gilman actually coming in right now. So looks like Phil taking that number 96 down to his pit stall with a slight bit of damage on the car. Gets his tires, and then away he goes once he is... Oh, I guess he's taken all 4. Back to Christopher Richards. Still running within the top 5. Owen McLaughlin still giving chase. That is Rem Ambrosi in the gray and blue machine you see ahead of Richards in the green and red. And, you know, I wonder if Gilman was not in for a scheduled stop, because this is much longer than a typical pit stop.
Yeah, still there, still in the box. Maybe a little bit of right front damage, but nothing too severely compared to what we've seen other drivers go through tonight.
Certainly not. Well, maybe we will have to wait a little bit longer before our first scheduled one. So far, only one car still running is a lap down. That is William Lee. Everybody else still on the lead lap. Drivers have mostly spread out. Looks like the race is starting to calm itself into a rhythm. Everybody's starting to discover it's more about beating the track than it is beating your opponents. This is really the closest battle that we've got that you can see on screen. Overbay up in 3rd, just a second ahead of Ambrosi in 4th, Richards in 5th, and McLaughlin in P6. Oh, and Richards with an error.
Once again, same part of the track, too, that we saw Richards go off earlier. He's having trouble keeping those 4 tires planted to the asphalt tonight. Didn't lose any position.
Sends him 6th. Ambrosi on Overbay now. Reels him in. As we climb up the Andretti straight, we look back from Michael. You can see the gap lessen. Rem runs out of straightaway. He lifts by the time they reach turn 8. They are putting a little bit of a gap on McLaughlin as well, starting to leave him in the dust.
Yeah, Rem has absolutely been closing in these last handful of laps, and it's definitely shown on track. I think he's in the range of picking up some slipstream as well from the back of that number 1 car. Oh, and a slow car in front of him. William Lee must have just had a problem. I think it was just an off track.
Yeah, but he's essentially just trying to stay out of everybody's way at this point. as he's not a factor in most of this race, just trying to find his way to the checkered flag. Overbay responds now, and Ambrosi drops back a couple tenths. Ambrosi hot into the second apex too. Gave it a miss, and that is not the corner where you want to struggle to find the grip.
Yeah, definitely not, because that's going to mess up his whole Andretti straightaway here. Trying to gain that ground on Overbay is going to be even tougher now, because Overbay able to streak away from allowing him to get any of that toe down the straightaway.
Getting close to halfway through this race, and still nobody in for a scheduled stop. Only 14 cars left running. Officially 2/3, I guess 1/3 essentially has retired. Meanwhile, on screen, McManus and Spicer in a nice little battle for 11th. That is McManus to the inside, trying to fend off Spicer. And he does so successfully for now. Whoa!
McManus.
Big catch.
He's going to... Oh, no, he's not going to take it into the pits.
I thought the same thing as you. Now's as good a time as any, but that loses him the spot. The number 22 moves into 11th. So Ronald McManus with a hairy moment. And one of our retirees has decided to bring it back out to see if he can scalp any points. That's Scotty Zerk. Don't really need to go to him. The 02 is going to see if maybe he can overtake a few drivers who also are still taking repairs. Oh, and Unger is in. Our leader is in the pits.
He is indeed our first scheduled stopper up front. Doesn't look like he got anyone to follow him, though. That'll put Eric Luke up front.
Exactly. And last time around, Eric Luke did a good job with the pit stops at the Nürburgring. See if we can maybe use it to his advantage to get a little bit closer. Doubt he'll be able to jump David Unger, who is now already done and returns in 8th, maybe 9th. Curlin Andrew just going to sneak by. Bad news for Unger, who's going to have some traffic in front of him now.
Hopefully he can deal with that as we ride on board with him. The good news for him, if there's any in that, is that Eric Luke potentially is going to have to deal with the same stuff once he makes a stop if he goes for a quick answer.
This is true, but Luke's not going to come for the quick answer. He's staying out at least one more lap. And that actually might be pretty savvy by the number 09. If Unger gets slowed up, that presents the best opportunity for Eric to try and leapfrog him.
Yeah, once again, everyone stays out in front of Unger, that is, at least. So no takers this time, by.
That's Andrew, you see in the banana split machine. Their distinctive yellow, hard to miss out on the circuit. And Unger certainly not whipping by Curlin Andrew. So while we don't know if this is hurting his pace, it's certainly not giving him a clear bit of track.
Ooh, it definitely looked like it hurt his pace there through Clayton. Had to check up just a bit.
No blue flags for Curlin Andrew, even though he hasn't stopped yet. He is under no obligation to pull over for our points leader. And in fact goes a little bit defensive down into Moss Hairpin. All right, so the number 12 is here for a fight. But how long is that fight going to last? Look at that. Didn't get it gunned down off the corner. And already David Unger is able to pull side by side. Finally, it looks like Curlin Andrew's going to have to give up the ghost. David Unger now up to 8th. "21 minutes now left on the clock, past halfway. Luke stays out, Overbay stays out, Ambrosi as well. Those are your top 3 for the moment. All 3 have yet to pit. So what did Unger's lap look like behind and battling? It's a 1:13.0 compared to Eric Luke, who ran a 1:12.2 and a 1:11.9 those last two laps. Ooh, the plot thickens.
Just had a change for position for P6 coming out of Moss. Christian Gritzko making his way around Matthew Gunderson, taking advantage of a little bit of a mistake by the number 33.
Let's take a look at that replay. Let's see if we can have a little bit better look at what went down.
It was the second apex that caught him off guard.
Nicely taken advantage of by Gritzko. You got to wonder what could be. Well, you don't have to wonder if anything. Gritzko, when he had his best race, won. He started this race in third. He's back up to 6 after multiple problems. I feel like Gritzko could be a championship contender. He just got that car underneath him.
Yeah, absolutely. He qualifies so well. He runs so well up front. Like you said, though, it just randomly likes to snap on him.
And wow, Eric Luke has extended the gap over Overbay by a big margin. And in fact, Overbay's under attack because Ambrosi's coming up behind him into turn 8. Couldn't make it stick. You could see him certainly looming right beneath the rear wing of our current champion.
Yeah, I'm really liking the way Eric Luke is looking right now. David Unger getting caught back in traffic. Luke getting faster and faster on track right now. This might play perfectly for last week's winner, Eric Luke.
Last lap, they were almost dead even to each other between Luke and Luke and Unger from across the track. And in fact, Unger is up to 7th with nobody in front of him. In fact, it is completely clear for 18 seconds. We report that Gunderson has pitted and Julian Huxley have also come in. We're going to get a second go up towards turn 8. This is still Ambrosi versus Overbay. Overbay in the geodesic car in the black and orange. Ambrosi, who backs out in the gray and blue. If they start fighting, don't look now, but Owen McLaughlin back there. Here we go. How much time did he manage to gain? Looks down for his pit stall. Unger's coming up towards turn 8 right now. Floridian finds it nice and steady.
Unger on the front stretch.
And he is easily through. Eric Luke only now just taking off, so it was all for naught. Tyler Gore, in the meantime, also coming in. Strange that Luke did not gain more, because Luke was both faster cone to cone and faster in his pit stall.
And he seemed to take advantage of that out on track, but apparently Unger was much faster than we put him to be.
His last lap was a 1:11.8. Maybe the in lap for Luke just wasn't strong. So we're still waiting on Overbay, who has inherited the lead, to come in and pit, who's being hounded by Ambrosi. Richards, in the meantime, who was in that train, decides now's a good time for his fuel. Let's take a look at Overbay as he tries to fend off Ambrosi. 16 minutes left on the clock. Fewer and fewer cars left with their needed pit stop.
Ambrosi is there too. He's able to make the move. I wonder if he's just waiting for a pit stop out of Overbay.
That could be the case. They hit the end of the backstretch. Once again, not really that aggressive of a move from Rim. Let's see if either of them are takers on the pits. Whoa, we got a car spun. That's going to lead two of them in, almost out of necessity.
William Lee.
Overbay and McLaughlin both come in for their scheduled stops. That now allows Rem Ambrosi to be your leader, but Rem is off. Rem is in the grass, but he gets it slowed up in time, doesn't hit anything.
It's still definitely going to hurt him, but yeah, all by himself, he lost that car.
A certain Code Brown for the 63. And once again, the rear of the car just coming out. Remember, we saw that with Padavani.
Overbay has also come out of the pits, I can report, behind Eric Luke.
And not far behind Eric Luke. Overbay about 1.1 seconds back. Still waiting on Curlin Andrew, Christian Gritzko, and Rim Ambrosi to take scheduled stops. The pit window now essentially closing here in a lap or two. Ambrosi knows it. He comes on in. Looks like Gritzko also. This is as far as he'll go before he's got to restock on fuel. That leaves lonely Curlin Andrew to take a stop. And Curlin Andrew is going to be joined by his pit crew, so he's not so lonely anymore. Let's hope he actually gets the fuel in. So that hands the lead back to the number 19 car of David Unger. And boy, did Eric Luke lose out in those stops.
Yeah.
It is 11 seconds.
Andrew in, Gritzko coming out now. Also, Ambrosi came out just in front of Gritzko.
Those two were in a fight before. I believe our teammates as well. So now that Overbay gets himself onto the podium, he doesn't want to stop there. Remember, he is fighting with David Unger, and right now Unger is outscoring him. But 13 minutes left, and with an easy overtake down the backstretch, getting ahead of Luke, that puts him to P2 with 11 and a half seconds. He's got to try and cut down to catch Unger. I just don't see it happening.
Yeah, and I think Luke's going to want to fight back if he can here.
Certainly will want to, because Luke is certainly not out of the points championship. He's up to P5 and about 22 points behind the leader. A lot can change. That's less than a victory away. Coming out of Quebec down into turn 4, diving over that hill. You can see Luke stalks Overbay. Gets a great run off of Moss as well. They've got a little traffic in front. William Lee is just going to stay off to the right and let them through. Not able to give an advantage to Eric Luke, who will stay back roughly half a second. This is really our best battle on track. After the pit stops, most of the others have separated. Watching from Luke's perspective, he is applying the pressure. In the past, it's been Luke who's succumbed to it from time to time. Last race, he finally broke his duck. Got himself his first win in this series, but the 09, now maybe thinking long-term, maybe he's thinking championship. Hoping to hold on to Overbay and just get these good points.
Trying to get a good run through Moss to put him on the back straightaway, the Mario Andretti straightaway. He's trying to get in range of that slipstream.
And I think he is. He's getting a whiff of it. It just doesn't seem like it's strong enough up this backstretch.
Oh,
Battle
battle
for
behind
fifth
him.
closing in. This is between Richards and Ambrosi. Richards in the green and black leading. Ambrosi in the blue and gray chasing. Coming through White's corner now. Back onto the pitch straight. And Ambrosi's threatening, but certainly not sending them in for the moment. He's got 10 more minutes. He's got time. He's got laps.
Yeah, Richards just recently picking up this position, and I mean, we've seen just a fantastic performance out of Richards because we've seen him off track at least twice tonight, and he's been really steadily moving up through the field as well. Seems like every time we're looking at him, he's passing someone.
So, 9 minutes left to go as Ambrosi keeps getting closer and closer to Christopher Richards, but I gotta give Richards credit to get back to P5 where he started this race. We've had some movers and shakers down to the inside. Rem Ambrosi taking a little bit of a peek, but can't quite get the move done. Defensive up to 9. Christopher Richards. Oh, but a sneak attack up into White's. He's strong on the brakes, and Rem Ambrosi now takes that top 5 away.
Great pass there by Ambrosi. Came out of nowhere, really.
Seems to know this track well. It holds a few secrets here and there. Our leader, ever since the pit stops, is looking a little bit unstoppable. He's extended the gap from 11 seconds to 12 and a half. Overbay has no response. Unger, who is our points leader, one of our 4 previous winners in the first 4 rounds, is looking like he is going to be our first repeater unless something dramatic happens to this number 19.
Yeah, the only response he's seeing out of Overbay right now is a response towards Eric Luke trying to defend him off for second. Haven't seen Luke put the pressure on him recently, but he is still in his mirror, very prevalent there.
Luke could be waiting it out. It could be that maybe he just strictly lacks pace on Overbay. We're going to ride on board with him, looking over his shoulder. A little bit lower to the ground than what we saw in the lap guide, so this should give you a much better perspective of the driver's eye view of the track as it comes at you and how blind some of these crests are.
Oh, issue for Gritsko.
It's Clayton corner again, and this time he found the wall.
Looked like he was gonna be able to save it at first, and then, yeah, hard into the wall.
Another driver who finds their car snapping just after that crest, and he just T-bones the tires. That shuffles him down to P7. We have 11 cars left on the lead lap, with Andy Spicer being the last one on the lead lap. Oh, and what's happened to Rem Ambrosi after such a good race?
Gritsko's teammate. Wonder if they're using a similar setup that just likes to snap. And we haven't seen many problems down into White's corner.
Certainly not. This is just in the midst of the S's. Tugging it nice and tight. And then on the corner exit, it looks like the tail wants to swap ends. And as much as he wants to catch it, unfortunately, he actually had to take to the pits due to the damage. And his day looks to be over, while Gritsko has another off track and loses another position. Gunderson goes by. This car is going by, well, they weren't for position at first, but now Tyler Gore and Curlin Andrew have gotten by. Now that is for position. Gritsko down to 9th.
Yeah, this was a battle back for 9th. Now it's up for 7th. So definitely taking advantage of this. And look at Tyler Gore take advantage of Phil Guillaume's slipstream, the lapped car.
Using every little trick that he can to get away from Curlin Andrew. So far, it is working. Let's check in on that battle for second place. Because, well, Luke doesn't seem to really be threatening Overbay too badly, at least not any pass attempts we've seen. He's keeping him very, very honest, and one slip-up will demote Overbay down to 3rd on the podium.
And we've seen how easy it is for one of those slip-ups to occur. Just a slight snap in the car will do it for you, and Overbay having to, like you said, really having to perfect these laps with Luke so close behind him.
So at one point, maybe Michael Overbay was thinking potentially win, but not anymore. Instead, he's looking at his mirrors to try and fend off last round's winner, Eric Luke, as they come out of Clayton's corner into Quebec. They've got a handicap over Owen McLaughlin, who is no threat behind. They are free to battle. And did we have some coming together with Gore and Andrew? They're battling for position, and Andrew's going to come out on top, but just barely. Gore gets a run down the front stretch, but he's not brave enough to try and tackle into turn 1. Let's take a look at that pass.
It was a bold one, it looks like.
Turn 8, we've seen a few drivers attempt this today. Around the outside, which switches back to the inside. And there you see the number 12 get himself P7.
Taylor Gore is still trying to find his way around him. See if he can get any toe down the straightaway here.
I think he's a little too far back.
Yeah, I agree. Looks like Andrew's got the pace to hold him off now.
Andrew, as I mentioned before, started 11th up to 7th, but he himself ran off track in the very first corner. So the number 12 car probably could have been much farther up the order. 3 laps to go now. Eric Luke starting to run out of opportunities. If he's waiting to try something, he's got to go soon.
Yeah, Overbay had a great lap last time around. Got a little bit of a gap in between them. Luke trying to tear that gap down. But he's, like he said, he's got to go very soon because it's now or never, and passing here is at a premium as it is.
Overbay certainly going from the hunter to the hunted. Last round at the ring, the final few laps, he was doing what he can to overtake Unger with his damage. Now, instead, it's him trying to keep Luke behind. 2 laps to go now.
They'll have a little bit of lap traffic here in the way of Julian Huxley, but it looks like that'll be no problem, at least for Overbay. Luke will still be behind him, but no problem for either one of them.
This could be one of the more critical corners of the entire race for Eric Luke. He's got to really get the power down, and he does decently. This, once again, just doesn't look like it's enough. He is much closer, though. It was 0.8 before. It is now 0.5 of a second. White flag waves for the number 19. He didn't lead every lap. And in fact, for a while, we didn't think he looked likely for a win because Padavani had the legs on him. But things behind him is where it's really interesting. Down to 0.1 of a second between Overbay and Luke for a moment.
Ooh, bad turn 1, though, for Luke. He got up on the curbing. Hopefully he can overcome that on the last lap here.
It's going to be a tough ask. That gap now up to 6, almost 0.7 of a second between himself and Overbay. I'm not certain about that one. So, with our leader coming up the backstretch, up the Andretti straight, David Unger, new coming in, 4 out of 4 winners. Well, let's make it 4 out of 5. Because as he comes through the S's, the number 19 is going to be your first repeat winner this season, and he's going to do it in Canada at Motorsport.
Looking good for Overbay behind him. Luke trying anything through the S's, trying to cut down that lead, but through White's corner, he's gaining, but not enough. It's going to be Overbay's second, and Eric Luke will settle for the final spot on the podium.
Much better race for McLaughlin today. Takes home a 4th place just outside the podium. And credit to Christopher Richards, who winds up with a 5th, exactly where he started.
Oh, and a change for position in 6th place. It's not who you think it is. It's Matthew Gunderson that runs out of fuel this time, and Curlin Andrew gets by him.
Oh. Just a couple corners from the line. Gore's coming up behind him. Spicer not too far back as well. In fact, I don't think Gunderson's going to be able to even make it to the line with this being an uphill run.
Yeah, it's not looking likely. He's going to be the last car in the lead lap either way.
He's cruising along.
It's not looking promising. Nope.
That's going to be it. He was our last car on the lead lap. So that brings us to the break here on the Global Sim Racing Channel, but not to the end of the broadcast. We've got the unofficial results as well as driver interviews. But on screen, you're going to see all the upcoming races here on the GSRC. back to Motorsport. We have our first repeat winner of the season, and it is newcomer and points leader David Unger, extending his gap over the field. 13 seconds as well on track. This looked like one that it was up to him to lose, but it wasn't always that way. Padovani wrecked out of the lead. We'll get to him later. Michael Overbay finished behind him in second, still chasing in the points and certainly not going to make inroads here today. Eric Luke finishes third from seventh on the grid. Not a bad follow-up to his first win. Owen McLaughlin takes fourth, and Christopher Richards with a well-earned fifth. Curlin Andrew from 11th to 6th, but there could have been a little bit more in it, you'd think. He still managed to climb upwards and get himself with a nice top 10 today. Tyler Gore finishes 7th, with Andrew Spicer being the last one on the lead lap in 8th. Matthew Gunderson ran out of fuel on the very last lap and couldn't quite make one final corner to get to the line. He finishes 9th. Ronald McManus winds up 10th.
11th place goes to your round 3 Monza winner. And Christian Gritzko had problems of his own. William Lee will be 5 laps down in 12th. Rem Ambrosi, he had a very nice run going for him. It's unfortunate to see him back in the Baker's dozen position. Mark Feil in the 777 will finish in 14th. Phil Yeoman will round out the top 15. Julian Huxley, Scotty Zerk, and David A. Bear are going to come home 16th, 17th, and 18th in that order. Jefferson Padovani, it was not the return to the series that he would have liked to have. He's going to DNF 26 laps down in 19th, with Danny Duchesne and Daniel Barnett rounding out the field behind him.
We have our winner ready to talk to us, David Unger, who is looking even better now for a potential championship on his hands. David, congratulations. You are the first driver this season to get his second win.
Thank you very much. Unfortunately, if it hadn't been for Jefferson crashing out, might not have got that win.
Yeah, I talk about that because we saw a lot of drivers fall afoul of the same problem he did in Clayton Corner. He had some real bad snap oversteer, and it just speared into the wall. Was turn 2 particularly devilish today? Because it seemed like so many just suddenly found themselves spinning off into the grass.
But the problem with turn 2 is if you don't take the right line, you're in trouble. You have to take a very tight line as you're heading down the hill. If you drift out wide a little bit, you've got to overcorrect, so to speak, and that's when you'll find yourself in trouble.
So Motorsport obviously adding to your tally with Road Atlanta being the first one. Do you consider yourself particularly strong at any certain type of track in this car?
Not really, no. I try to be as consistent as I possibly can. This particular track today, I think I told you last week, it is my favourite track. And I was quite surprised at Jefferson's qualifying time. That was a great time, actually. And he was actually getting away from me very early on. But unfortunately, because of his accident, I was able to get the lead. But yeah, no, I try to be as consistent as I possibly can on any track.
And one last one before we let you go. Before the pit stops, it seemed like Luke was keeping you honest, and then suddenly after that happened, he was nowhere to be seen, and that's when your domination really seemed to begin. Was there anything special in the pit stops? Because or at least in the in and out laps, because we could not figure out where you found that time.
No, I'm in the same boat as you. Yeah, he was catching me before the pit stop. I made a couple of silly mistakes. Got caught behind the back marker. And that's why I decided, let's fit in now while I'm ahead. And then when I come out, realised, and once I got back in the lead again and realised that him and Michael were about 12 seconds behind me, I'm like, where did that come from?
Hopefully we'll get an answer from one of them in a bit. Again, congratulations. Your championship hopes are getting better and better, sir.
Thank you very much, guys.
That was David Unger from Down Under, our winner today. Up next, I believe Nick has caught up with second place finisher Michael Overbay.
How you guys doing?
We're doing fantastic. How are you doing after that fantastic race yourself, coming up from 6th up to another second place finish?
Yeah, I'll take it because I do not like this track. My whole philosophy was just keep it clean the whole time and be safe. I even threw a ton of downforce on it just to keep it between the lines and didn't spin. And you can see what happened. Everybody else just kind of spun away.
Yeah, absolutely. Did you have any scary moments of your own regarding the traction or the grip coming through? You talked about how much downforce you wanted to have.
Not really too bad. Maybe one time, but not too bad at all. Yeah, it really wasn't that bad for me. I just threw, like I said, a ton of wing on it, so it was no big deal coming out of the corners for me.
Saw you battling there on the second stint there with Eric for quite some time. Able to hold him off. Were you really feeling the pressure there too badly, or able to hold him off pretty well, just kind of managing the gap?
No, he had damage. So he had spun earlier and hit and had damage. So I told him I would help him out and give him a draft the rest of the way to the finish line. So I kind of backed up to him, and then we just kept it. I was keeping it within that second so I could give him a pull down the straightaway because he didn't have any straight speed with his damage. So I just threw the suspenders out the back, and he grabbed them.
All right. Well, that explains some inner workings that we saw there. But a very nice race for you. Are you looking forward to heading over to Belgium next week for Spa?
Yeah, definitely. Spa is going to be a good track for me. Got a good setup. We're pretty fast there. This Alpine Stars Geodesic Racing Radicals, sponsored by GoPro, is pretty fast there. So I can't wait for next week. We should give them a run for their money there.
All right. Well, we hope to talk to you again. You've put together 2 second-place finishes so far. And, Joe, I believe you caught up to our third-place driver.
Absolutely. We've got Eric Luke with us. He finished on the podium, but before he got there, let's talk about the qualifying. Eric, most of this season and even last season, you seem to have phenomenal qualifying, usually on the front row, but not so today. What happened?
Well, what happened is I had 2 different setups for the car, and neither one was really a qualifying set. They were both race sets, but I'd always seemed to put a faster time on low fuel on one particular set. So I took that out on track, and I couldn't put a lap together. It never materialized for me. So when race time came, I slapped on the race set, the other set that I had, and I was three tenths faster in the race pace than I was in my qualifying. So I just got kind of lucky ending up where I did.
Well, it all worked out in your favor, and you've been using this good bit of finishing order or finishes to try and improve your position in the championship. You've now reached the top 5 last round, and obviously this will take you even farther up. What's your end goal for this season?
Hopefully I can claw away some points away from David and try to get back up there. And to do that, I gotta pick up another win or 2 and just stay on the podium consistently.
Well, you did that these last 2 rounds. I believe this is your 3rd podium of the season. You're looking very strong, sir. We hope to get to talk to you more.
I appreciate it, gentlemen. Have a good evening.
That was Eric Luke, 3rd place today. And I believe that takes us to the close. So we're going to thank a few people. Of course, a big thank you to Dream Vacations for sponsoring the PRL Radical Racing Series. Check them out at travelwithanangel.com. And also a thank you to iRacing for putting us on the iRacing Esports Network for this series. You can see what kinds of awesome stuff you can catch with the Radicals. Make sure and subscribe to catch more of it on IESN. Thanks to the companies that provide the software and hardware for our broadcast listed here on your screen. And additional thanks go out to June Lalonde, who provides our wonderful music. See the screen for how to get a hold of more of her great work. Thanks to the team today, Nick, Sean, and Dougie. If you'd like to find out more about GSRC, including upcoming races, you can find it at globalsimracingchannel.com. You can also check us out on social media. We're on Twitter at GSR Channel, Facebook at Global SimRacing Channel, and Instagram at GSRC_Graham. The next race is at Spa. Much different track to this one, at least in terms of length. That'll be Thursday, April 25th at 9 p.m. Eastern. We also have upcoming races for other series listed on the screen, so check those out and mark them down on your calendar. However, until next time, race clean, race hard. We'll see you on the track.